Welcome, everyone, to the show. I'm JJ Flizanes.
I'm Doug Sandler. We already have a great show, and we haven't even started yet.
I know. I'm chomping at the bit. I'm really wanting to get this conversation started.
Is that what you were chomping on? I thought it was chewing gum, but you actually have
I was chomping on a bit.
On a bit.
I brought the bit with me to Santa Barbara County.
I understand.
So when I was getting ready to do this and so excited I'd have something to bite down
You did
on.
get a lot of emails this week. I know you're not prepared for this, but I just wanted to say that to all the community members that are listening that it was a lot of ego in our home this week.
Ego, really? I think it was just appreciation and gratitude. And I thank all of you for writing in, and I appreciate you. And it keeps the show going.
And thank you, everybody, for every once in a while just throwing my name in there just to humor me and keep me coming back for more.
Especially those of you that love Doug. So thank you for letting him know, that his love language is words of affirmation.
Who doesn't love Doug? I am disappointed knowing that somebody might not love me.
We're not going to go down that rabbit hole right now.
But speaking of which, there are a couple people that have not loved me, and those are the people.
They love you. The people that are here with us today love you.
No, I'm talking about my ex-wives.
Well, we're going to talk about them.
Oh, okay.
Because today's subject matter is going to be based around our guests. We have our friends Jack and Monica who are with us today. We are actually in Santa Barbara County.
We changed their names to protect the innocent, just so you know. Their actual names are Jack and Monica. So we're just going to call them Jack and Monica. And they have a business, and we're going to share with you their business. And what's unique about their business, they've been doing wedding photography and event photography for a long time. And over the course of many dinners and drinks together, over the last year since Doug and I have been together. Lots of drinks.
Lots of drinks.
Would you like to discuss
that?
No,
I don't want to discuss that.
That one night?
Nope.
No? Are you sure?
Yep.
I think your community would love to hear. Okay, all right. Moving on. If you want to hear more, it's Doug@turnkeypodcast.com.
Actually, I'm thinking about doing a VIP where you guys let me know if you're interested in this. I have the option to actually do VIP podcasts where it would be a cost. It would some minimal amount of money. I don't know, $5, $10, $20, something like that, where there would be VIP
$100 million. Then we can buy that house that we've been looking at.
Anyway, so if you're at all interested in VIP episodes or group coaching, I put that on the Facebook group, so I've got some feedback on that. But anyway, let's get on to today's show because I'm super excited to hear these stories. So sitting around a fabulous dinner that Jack would make for us and the wonderful hostess Monica is, and our Latin music and their dogs and wine, and we'd talk about...
And Uzo.
Enough with that. We would talk about... relationships, because obviously this is Doug's most recent and my most recent relationship. He's been married a few times, as you all know.
No, I've actually had a relationship since you.
You went on one date. Let's not go there. The whole world knows.
I know,
you
Donna.
Went out with Donna.
I know, Donna. Oh, sorry, Donna.
So the conversation has come up about how many times, in fact, I think I want to lead in with this story about the bet that Jack made about Doug's last wedding and whether it would work.
Why would you bet against me?
I'm sorry. Well, because that then led to conversation about, outsiders, regardless of whether you're a psychologist or not, you see patterns and you see things happen and they really can tell whether or not a couple is going to make it based on how they are before and during their wedding. I thought it was a really interesting topic to talk about because maybe you're that person who's getting married soon and you're engaged and maybe you've got some doubts and maybe you're kind of have the blinders on and maybe you're slightly open or maybe you're not. And I just wanted to say, let's talk about that. So welcome, Jack and Monica.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's not quite as simple as it sounds, and the stories that we tell you are based upon a 30-year career, and using Doug as an example, because it sounds like you use Doug a lot as examples. When you see something wrong in a relationship, as we all know, speaking truth to point sometimes can get you in an awful lot of hot water. But in our careers, what you see over time is certain parts of chemistry that just probably shouldn't be together forever after.
Well, let's just start so we can set up the level of experience that you have, other than just the amount of years. How many weddings have you shot in your career, would you say, between the two of you? Just take a wild guess.
Well, we try to lose track, but we're probably approaching 2,000 weddings, social events to our
And if you were a betting man, and I know you are, Jack, if you were a betting man, how many of those would you say that you would condition or give a probability that's pretty high that the couple won't make it much into a couple of years of their relationship?
Well, it's interesting how JJ jumped on this when we started telling stories around the dinner table. Back in the analog days, when we were using film, there was like 5 to 10 days post an event that we didn't get our proofs back. And so the typical pattern would be client goes away on honeymoon, proofs come back, client comes back, we give them their proofs, and we make an album some weeks later.
So you have a wedding, so you have the ceremony, the reception, then you have the honeymoon, and now you're the next thing that they see. So they've had a week or two.
So there's two major, or actually several major things that have changed in our careers over the decades, and in the analog and in the digital world. So for example, back 30 years ago or 20 years ago even, I hate to say it this way, but it does come down to money, where you would take a deposit of 50% and you'd pick up the balance when the client picked up their proofs, which could be, in this situation, 10 to 20 days after their wedding. Well, depending on how well the honeymoon went, they spent all their money and they don't have any money to pay for their proofs. Oh, no. So over years, you start looking at your shelves and you see proofs that are sitting on the wall for 6 months or a year because the client ran out of money. Over time, you learn to get all your money up front so that it doesn't matter how much fun they have on their honeymoon. But back in those analog days when we were younger and we didn't quite understand how the game was played as much, I would say that there was a solid 5 or 10% of clients that we had a little internal joke called Red Dot. And that was really rush the proofs so you could get the proofs back to them before the marriage fell apart.
So Monica, let me ask you this question, because I know that Jack is heavily involved in the business side of the business, but from a personality perspective, maybe the feminine side, did you see that as well, or was that just you guys have been working together for 30 years, right? So for 30 years you've been working together.
30 years coming this September.
So did you see as easily as, let's say, Jack saw the red dot?
Oh, I did. Especially, when they're coming in to meet with us. And signs are one of the two in the couple will speak and the other one just is silent. There's no contribution, there's no excitement. And then Jack and I would look at each other and we would be, okay, where do we go from here? So you also learned that the consultation goes both ways. Maybe we don't want to be a part of this wedding because it's not meant to be.
Would you guys both agree? Like, did you always agree that you could see that was a couple that you thought, oh, they're probably not going to make it? Or were there times where you disagreed and one thought they're not going to make it and the other one saw something different?
We disagreed, and I think it's more, and it's a woman-man kind of a thing, and I like to say that I was mostly right, and I'm not letting you speak anymore.
So she's right. She's usually right. I see things that at the early stage of a relationship that, I think like in all relationships, they just work out. They figure it out. Now, does that mean they live happily ever after? Not always. I will tell you this, that for the careers we have had, or that we continue to have, we keep in touch with a tremendous amount of our clients. And as we all know that the divorce rate in this country hovers around 50%, plus or minus 5 or 10, depending on the year, it basically is 50%. Of the clients that I keep in touch with, that we run into all the time, the divorce rate of weddings that we have been a part of as photographers, it's far closer to 15%. Now, we can't advertise that, You can't advertise, well...
Hold on. So are you saying that that when a bride and groom hire you to be their wedding photographer, there's a greater probability that they will not get divorced because you have set them up properly in the photo
I don't
stages?
want to take any credit for that on the good or the bad side of that relationship. I will just tell you that since the core of our career really took off in the 90s, and now we're in the near 2020s, that when you start getting involved with their kids and you are doing weddings for people whose bar and bat mitzvahs you shot, bar and bat mitzvahs for the children that you did their parents' weddings. And I go as far as to say, because it's already happened now 3 times in just the last couple of years, where we did someone's bar and bat mitzvah, photographed their wedding, and now doing their kids' bar and bat mitzvahs.
Wow,
that's
great.
3 generations. So we sometimes go to people's parties or go to that second or third generation event and realize there's 9 or 10 couples in that room that we photographed their weddings 20 or 25 years ago.
So have you ever gotten to the point where you felt so confident that the wedding wasn't going to work out or the marriage wasn't going to work out, you've said, hey, John, can we talk before we take these photos? This is an expensive event you're putting together.
Well, I got to say that we actually have never done that.
You didn't even do that for your best friend, me. I don't even understand that.
You know, I think when we all fall in love, we all fall in love for the right reasons. And I really do believe that. I really think that when we start the wedding process, and I've been married twice, and not to say and take away anything from my first wife, who I'm still very, very close with and parent my children with, you don't go into, I don't know anyone who would actually admit the fact that they went into a wedding with all the wrong intentions. I think things change over the years. I think things change over time.
Well, so there's a difference between going into it with the right or wrong intentions or going into it not seeing any of the signs. And that was really one of the things that I wanted to talk about is the signs that you know that things aren't going to work out.
So I'm going to turn this back over to Monica. I'm going to title those things as love blinders. And when we walk out of a consultation, or sometimes where it really shows is on the wedding day, and I'll let Monica elaborate on that, but we call them love blinders.
I would say like a love blinder would be something like the bride and the groom not getting along at the cocktail hour. They're already arguing. That comes to the best man giving a toast, and you can see the bride and groom arguing over the guy that's about to deliver the speech. And he's like, that SOB better not say anything bad about me during speech time.
That would definitely be a good sign. So that one might not make it to picking up their proofs, as Jack mentioned earlier. But I think the signs, you know, if you wonder whether or not you can change someone, you know, that's a sign. You know, don't go into a relationship or a marriage thinking that you will change someone. You might add to their personality, know when to step away, but the signs that we see are just nonverbal communications. You know, when they are not walking together, when they're not holding hands,
not touchy-feely, especially in the beginning stages of this.
Not touchy-feely, because we take the time to actually do photos of the couple before the wedding.
And I've seen Jack and I've seen you do many where you're actually posing. Like today when we were taking photos, we're in wine country near Santa Barbara, and
they were so cute.
When you were posing us for a lot of the stuff that you were posing. By the way, JJ and I we did not set this up so that these were our engagement photos. By the way, these were not our engagement photos. This is a test of the emergency broadcast system.
All I said was you were cute.
So you kept you take my hand and you put it on her shoulder, or you'll tell me to get a little closer. And I know, just from my experience in the event industry myself as a DJ, and I've seen this many times, where when you do that and the bride pulls back or the groom pulls back, or you can tell as soon as that groom touches that bride, that level of tension goes up.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, it's like, oh my gosh, do they realize they're going to potentially spend the rest of their lives together?
Well, exactly. And so those are all signs. And we love our couples. We always say, you know, the smile doesn't come like from the mouth, right? It comes from the eyes. So they might not be overly touchy, but when they look at each other, there's that sparkle in the eyes, and that's what we look for. And if it's not there, you know, we continue, because nobody's going to hear you when you tell them, oh, I don't think so, you know, refunds, you know, go back. But it's a special time for everybody.
Well, it's not your job, right? It's like, it's in a way, right? You're wedding photographers and do other photography. So I'm hiring you to do that. I'm definitely not going to be open to hearing your advice unless I'm asking you, and I know you and I trust you on relationship stuff. And so I understand that. But for the people who are listening right now, who are in a relationship, who are possibly open to reevaluating in a good or a bad way, what are some of the other things that you see? I know you've mentioned one, like sort of walking down the aisle, that again sort of indicate that there's too much distance between them. There's not enough togetherness or connectedness.
Well, I'll give you a couple of quick snippets of things, all of which I have seen inside of the last 2 years. So these are really, really fresh memories. The repeating one that Monica and I, we just, as a husband and wife who shoot separately and shoot together, we come back from jobs and say, oh, how'd it go? How'd this couple like? And I go, oh yeah, he doesn't get what having a wife means. And what just put yourself in this mindset. You're out there doing family photographs. And when the family photographs are done, the groom starts walking away and the bride yodels in his direction, honey, and he'll literally walk back, turn around, and start walking back to where he went to, not realizing that what's missing is a hand to come out to the bride and put the bride a step ahead of him instead of 2 steps behind. Now, this sounds awfully Princess Bride-ish, but just stop and think about it. I hate to blame it on the guys, but we're a little bit insensitive. We're getting married. The bride has spent a year or so with every waking moment planning the details. We're participants. I actually have one coming up where the groom is over participating the bride. It's in 3 weeks, actually. And I'm really looking forward to how it pans out. Great couple. Kudos to David when it happens. We'll talk about that in another cast maybe. But anyway, so guys not paying attention to their new bride on a wedding day, huge, huge sign. Doug, you mentioned the best man's speech. If the bride is worried, now listen, here's 2 sides of the same coin. If the bride is worried that the inappropriate best man is going to make a speech, that throughout the entire speech, she's hitting or running her fingernails into the groom's arms, that best man is not going away the day after the wedding. He's the groom's best friend. And the fact that he's going to tell stories about the last 6 girlfriends on your wedding night is a problem that should be solved before the wedding starts, not something you should hold against the groom for the next 10 years.
And talking about like other people at the event, aside from the best man for a moment, how about the relationship between the bride and the groom's parents or the groom and the bride's parent? That's got to be a telltale sign. I would think immediate signals go off in my head if the relationship, and you can tell immediately if that is a challenged relationship as well.
It's so funny. I was just about to say that is definitely another sign. I had a bride, or the mother of the bride, who called me and said, I have not met his family. We've invited them all the time. He doesn't come. I mean, literally crying almost. And that's a huge sign because the bride is trying so hard to make this work, and any appointment, because we had a couple appointments in the studio or to meet, and it was more, well, he has a football game to watch, or he is going back home. And, and it happened a couple of times, several times actually, and the wedding has happened and they're married, but it just seemed like the bride has lost her way, or now the wife has lost her way in fitting in with him and not melding the 2 families together. And that in the long run, in my opinion, is not a healthy way to begin a relationship.
Well, what's interesting is that you're not just marrying the woman, the bride, or the groom. You're marrying the entire family. So I look at it and say, wow, if you're already starting from a challenged position of not having a relationship with the family of, that's got to be a really bad place to start. And it puts strain on the relationship. It's not just about the love that you have for your spouse and the love that your spouse has for you. It really is about that entire ecosystem of the wedding, well beyond the ceremony. I think you could probably get through a year, 2 years, and last in that sterile environment of just you and your significant other and your married partner. But to get beyond that, you really need buy-in. Unless you're living on an island by yourself, without that buy-in, for example, religion. If you're not the same religion, I'm not saying that you need to be the same religion. But if your family is against it, imagine the amount of strain that's going to cause the marriage. If you're Jewish, he's not, and all of a sudden, come holiday time, they're fighting for you to be able to go there, and your spouse doesn't want to go because that's not their religion, or they're not supportive of the things that you were brought up with. That's got to be a terrible strain on the relationship.
Well, I will tell you that religion, as though we think it's something that is the most important first hurdle, Catholic, Jewish, or whatever it may be, ethnic backgrounds. Like just last weekend, we photographed a Jewish Korean wedding, and it was on one of the hottest days of the year, and it had a lot of speed bumps to get over just on the fact that it was one of the hottest days of the year, and a lot of rain came. But there was something about the dynamics of these two that they soared right past it. It was a second marriage for both of them, and they were very, very secure in themselves. A couple of years ago, I did a fabulous Irish boy married an Indonesian family. You have an Irish Catholic family from, I don't know, Ohio or Pennsylvania somewhere, marrying a traditional Indonesian family with everything and all the accoutrements that goes along with that, where the cultures... They're both Christian-based religions, but their cultures have nothing in common. But you could see the love in the parents, that they were both tremendously supportive of the kids. And that to us, there are a few things that really rip at our souls, especially after all these years, when you see a marriage that isn't going to work at the wedding day. It really hurts us. For every reason.
So how about on another note? How about the socioeconomic status of a bride or a groom as they go into it? The groom is paying, or the bride. Let's take the bride for example. The bride is paying for everything because this is her important day. I'm just thinking back to my scenario when I got married for the second time, where this was extremely important to her, and so she put in a lot of the dollars into the wedding, where we had decided ahead of time the budget was going to be considerably smaller, but she saw things along the way that were very important. It caused a lot of strain for me, but it was one of those things that she just wanted to do. So what am I supposed to do? I didn't go against her. She wanted to spend the money on it, and so it's not for me to say yes or no. It's if you want to do it, you do it.
There's a couple of red flags that I have seen over the years that I'm kind of categorizing them as we've been talking, because when we started having this conversation with the two of you 3 days ago, I started thinking, well, never actually thought about this in a linear sense, kind of all at one time. And I'll say that anyone who thinks that a bad relationship with the in-laws is going to get better over time, this is something you should really get some professional opinions about, because it's not going to get better. If it's starting off bad and you're already falling over holidays, or the future mother-in-law, and again, it doesn't matter which side of the gender you're on here, if that future mother-in-law already doesn't like the way you cook, the way you act, the way you dress, the way you drive, it's not going to get better, and it is an irritant. It is a rash that you cannot put ointment on, and it will not go away.
I totally agree. And again, I hope I'm not sharing any information to the world that is not common knowledge, but my mom does not have the greatest, or did not have the greatest relationship with my brother's wife. And from the very beginning, it was a challenged relationship, and it was 30 years that way. So it never got better. You're 100% right. If you think it's going to get better without you doing some extra work or backpedaling or something that you need to do in order to improve that relationship, it's going to go down a slippery slope, and that is not a good slope to be on.
But going back to what you mentioned about how much the budget was going to be for your second wedding, I think that was a red flag. If you were to look back, because not that it wasn't as important for you, but eventually it would come out, right? That something was not right or as important for one.
Yeah, I think there's a certain level of, there's got to be a trust issue between the two of you. If this is what we set out to do, then this is where it should be. And you're rolling down a snowball rolling down the hill, and it's like, okay, I don't know where to stop. I can't stop it. And at some point you just have to say, I can't do any more. You know, there is a number of red flags. Again, I look at the red flags, especially in my second marriage, because that was such a brief, it was 2.5 years of, I don't even think it was that much. It was 2 years of my life. And what was incredible about it was that as I look back to all of the things that would potentially red flags for both of us, we probably should not have, as in love as I was, we should not have gone forward with the marriage. I don't regret having been married that second time, but I do regret not seeing the flags and having conversations about them. I don't, JJ, I know that you probably have, I don't want you to share any information that you're not comfortable with sharing, but, there was probably red flags in your relationships too. I know there was for me.
But mine didn't center around the wedding. It was only, if I really thought about it, it was, 2 years, a year before the wedding happened. And it was more behavioral things that I thought, I don't have the tools for this. I don't know how to handle this. But actually, I had a freaking perfect wedding. Like, it was awesome, which is another reason why it saddens me to think about marriage in general or ever getting married again for that reason, because it literally was perfect because I designed it that way. I used to work weddings at the Bel Air. And so I was a hostess, and so I would see the people that would come in that made it about them and their relationship, and the ones that came in and made it about the production, the ones that were not actually connected, the ones that were more worried about whether people were sitting or what their dresses looked like or where the photos were going to be or if the swans were in the pool at the right time, and they just didn't, and the groom was having a good time with his buddies, but he actually wasn't into his wife. And I would see this and I would think, that's not going to last. And if this is a first marriage, it will not be the last marriage. And I wasn't married at the time, wasn't engaged, wasn't even in a relationship when I was working at the Bel Air. So I have been in that position to sort of watch weddings, which is why when I finally had mine, one of the first things I said was, we're doing it in Hawaii so that everyone's on a vacation. We're going to be in vacation mode. Number 2, I'm hiring a wedding planner because I am not going to run around like a chicken with my head cut off with a whole bunch of stress when I'm supposed to be having a good time and be in joy. So the day of my wedding was literally spent having breakfast with my family, looking at the mountains in Kauai. I had a pedicure. I took a bath, a bubble bath, looking at the ocean. My girlfriends came over and we all got dressed and had played music and had a great time. It was a perfect day. Now, does that mean my marriage was going to last because I had a perfect day and a great wedding? No, of course not. But I did everything I could consciously up until that point to see and to commit to doing the right thing by my relationship. So I don't know if, this conversation has come out of, again, hearing stories from Jack and Monica and even from the first get-go when I met you guys, right? And sort of looking back at his last relationship and you may regret not seeing the red flags, but as we all know, everything happens in perfect and divine timing. And you wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for that. You had to wake up and it had to be done like that because it didn't happen in the first marriage when it ended. You didn't have a wake-up call. You had a wake-up call on this last round, and there was probably no other way that could have happened for you. So, to me, I wanted to have this conversation because it is interesting from another perspective. Because, like I said, I've kind of been there. I haven't done nearly as many weddings as you guys have, but I've watched the relationships, and that was 15, 16, 19 years ago that I was in that job. And I know way more now than I knew then about psychology and about personality and about all this stuff. And so even back then it was obvious to me that I thought this is probably not going to work. So if we had to pick out a couple more red flags, so to speak, what would you say would be some of the signs, either, again, in the pre-photos or the day of?
Well, I was going to go back a little further in mine and Jack's relationship and our wedding. Me personally I was thinking there's a lot of red flags, in my own mind about our wedding, because culturally, I was born Catholic. He is Jewish. His second marriage, children, all of those things, what it brought to the relationship, are those red flags? Are we ready for this? And, I found my best friend. And so a red flag to me is if you don't consider this person your best friend, the person you think of when you're happy, scared, hungry, whatever it is, if that's not one of, the first person or one of the first people you think of, that's a red flag. If you are not looking forward to going home, and these are all things that we hear, we hear in a consultation, because a consultation, like I said, it goes both ways. We really want to make sure we're the right people for them, and they're looking at us to capture their day, because we are with them from the moment literally almost they get up all the way through they're saying goodbye or closing the door on us when they're done with the wedding and there's that last kiss. So the stories or the consultation, they'll tell us, oh, well, he won't be here, or, oh, we won't be seeing each other for the next 3 weeks. Things like that to me are those little pearls of wisdom that I would share, that I would say, think about those things. They mean something.
I love the idea of your spouse to being your best friend. We say that all the time as a couple, that you wanna be partnered with your best friend, but you don't really think about it a lot as you are. You're thinking about, getting married, the romance involved. You really don't think oftentimes about the best friend idea. And you're right. You want to be able to rely upon that person rather than going to your maid of honor, matron of honor, best man for advice. Would you consider going to your groom or your bride, your child bride? Would you consider going to your bride or your what's your nickname,
Doug,
Jack?
are you stealing my names now?
What's your nickname?
I call my Monica my child bride, and now you've adopted that.
What
for
does
JJ.
What does she call it? No. I will let you. I just say it as teasing. Wait, she calls you what? What does she call you?
She calls me late for dinner.
Wandering Jew, the Wandering Jew, my child bride. I love it.
I will tell you this. What you just said was, there's a kind of an irony, because listeners don't know that you and I have known each other for 15 years.
Right.
We have worked together. You as a DJ, me as a photographer. We have been business partners. We both know each other's first wives well.
Right.
We were both at each other's second weddings.
True.
And I think we were the first people to kind of publicly know you and JJ. And so we've watched your relationship develop, and here we are, barely a year later, on the left coast. We started this relationship on the right coast. Now we're on the left coast. But as JJ likes to define things, I have got 3 things that have been stewing in my head now: the 3 tells, consultation pre-wedding, and I'm trying to articulate the 3 post-tells from the wedding day. And here's what I think. I'm not a trained psychologist. I am not a man of the cloth. I am simply a photographer who has seen literally hundreds upon hundreds, at this point, thousands of couples on their wedding day. And I think in the beginning of the process, in the consultation room, when we're discussing weddings, I think the relationship has to be about, first of all, mutual respect. Where if she goes left or he goes right or vice versa, they have to respect each other's decision, or after respect comes compromise to figure out, okay, well, he wants to go a little bit more her direction or vice versa, to come to an agreement. And then I think you have to be able to not win. It's not about winning. You have to have that compromise. It has to be for the one. And that's in the beginning. And the things that we see are the adamants, where she has to do this and he refuses to do that. Or his family thinks this is a great idea and her family thinks it's a horrible idea. And by the way, that can be about the color of the plates or invitations, down to a tuxedo shirt or a bridesmaid's dress. We're not even talking about the important things. We have seen people go to bat. I don't want to get into the fundamentals of wedding photography, but most photographers sell their wedding albums by number of pictures and sizes. I gave that up 20 years ago because I saw people literally getting divorced, like using the D word, as we called it back in the 90s, arguing over the fact that they had a 50-image album and they were fighting over spending $25 on one extra 8x10 or 2 5x7s. And it would go on for 90 minutes in a battle, and I wasn't going to charge them for it anyway. It just wasn't worth it, which is why I don't charge by the picture or by the hour anymore. It's a one-stop shop. Enough about photography. Post a wedding, I think what things really come down to is really the word respect. It's kind of starts in the beginning. It may be one of the most important things post, because as I don't know the demographics of all of your listeners, but the people who are listening to this podcast that are 20 to 40 are hearing very different things in this podcast than the people who are 40 to 70. And those that have been married once are hearing this very differently than those that have been married more than once.
Or those that haven't been married at all.
Or those that have been married at all. Absolutely. I'll tell you a story very quickly. The very first time I actually came home from a wedding shaking because I saw something. And I think it's where this whole thing started. It was early on in my career. I was probably all of 24, 25. I wasn't married yet myself. And I watched a bride reach in front at a head table, dozen people, whatever it is, 18 people at a head table. And I watched through a long lens, so I'm 25, 30 feet away from the subject. I watched the bride reach for the salt and pepper shaker right in front of the groom's plate. So I'm caddy corner left. I'm looking, bride's closest to me. I'm looking across, and I watch the bride reach for the salt and pepper shaker in front of the groom's desk, in front of the groom's plate. He grabs her left hand with his right hand, and I can see his fingers, his hand clawing her wrist and looking at her with this venomous look in his face. Don't ever cross me again. My knees were knocking. I'm like, what is happening here? It is, how does that go on? What's going to happen on their honeymoon? What's going to happen when their guard is down? And so that was the first time I ever saw things like this. It is, I can't tell you whether it made it or not. I can just tell you at my age now, some of our best friends are couples that we have photographed. And one of our closest friends was one of my absolute favorite brides of the late 90s. And I used to tell stories when I teach photography of like, who are your favorite brides? And I would talk about her, about the great stories about her wedding. And we lost touch after 15 years. And then we were photographing a dance group of children, and her child was there, and we reconnected. Well, sadly, we reconnected with this couple, and we helped them through their kids' bar and bat mitzvahs, or actually their kids' bar mitzvah. And in reconnecting with them and preparing the bar and bat mitzvah, I turned to Monica and I said, this marriage is on its end. It's not going to make it much longer. And literally the week before their affair, when we were as friends over at their house having dinner, I looked at Monica and I said, this will be over the month after the mitzvah. And they split up the month after the mitzvah. I'm not saying we have a crystal ball. You just see things after a certain amount of time. And most love manuals will tell you 3 to 5 years is the tough part. For me, I think the hardest part about a marriage is getting through middle school and high school. Kids put a tremendous strain on a relationship, which is why that foundation, that respect, whether it's in the consultation room or on the wedding day, is so very, very important for the success of a relationship.
Well, oftentimes, the question comes to me or to us about, well, definitely to me, about, do you work at it? Do you not? Do you stay or do you go? And I'm a big believer that a lot of people leave way too early and have not done the work to try to save their marriage and are doing the wrong kinds of work. And so I still believe that many people throw in the towel and just think grass is greener on the other side and don't realize they take themselves with them. So that being said, one of the things that I really liked about today's topic was that, to me, at least what kept me going was to keep reminding myself and understanding and knowing that I felt in alignment when I met my husband. I felt 100% in when we got married. I know people who will say they knew walking down the aisle they were making a mistake. I've heard people say, I didn't think it was a good idea, but I didn't know what else to do. Now, when you start a marriage off like that, I'm going to say that you're probably don't want to put in the effort because you didn't think you should have been doing it in the first place. To me, the effort or the reason to, and it's not about making it work, but the reason to commit to it is because you were committed. You did think it was going to be forever. You were completely in. That to me speaks about that if you're not aware of whatever fears you may have had, that you truly believed and you were in love, which means that there's something there that each person in the couple needs to work on. And that's the psychological piece. That's the imago therapy we talk about. That's all the other therapies. So looking at the wedding day, it's just interesting because I'm always shocked when I hear people say, yeah, I kind of knew. I'm like, well, then why did you go through with it? Well, I paid for the wedding. I paid for the band. I paid for the... I'm embarrassed. I have shame. I didn't know what else to do. And I'm thinking, well, then, yeah, maybe it's time for you to actually listen to your intuition and go for something that you feel 100% good about from the get-go, that you don't have any doubts about. So to think about the people that like the red flags just sort of brought up that, if you're listening to this, I want to help validate for people and give you permission that if you have a doubt, stop. Stop, because maybe that's the inner knowing that's trying to tell you something that you're not listening to. And if you, because Doug was totally in love, he wasn't going to listen if Jack said, Doug, what are you doing? And Jack knew that. And all of Doug's friends knew that because they said that to him. And
after.
Yeah, they said to that after. But this podcast is literally for those of you that are out there wondering, you're vacillating and you're trying to give yourself permission to actually make a big decision of saying, maybe I should put the brakes on this. And I just wanted to validate that with some people who've seen more weddings than any of us have.
And if you do stop, it doesn't mean you're stopping forever. It means that you're stopping, taking a pause, talk to your partner, right? And say you're having these doubts. So maybe your partner is also having those doubts and you elope, and not deal with the whole big wedding thing. Maybe that's what's causing the anxiety. But maybe you do pause and you decide you both go your separate ways and you stay friends. And then again, you pause, you get married, and you live happily ever after for 30, 50, or my parents, 60 years, yay. And so it's such an individual thing that it's okay to pause, as JJ said, and just take a breather.
I'll take it one step further that it's a lot harder to pause than to move forward. And we're working on a wedding right now together for a very dear friend of ours who used to date a good friend of ours. That relationship ended. She's on to a new relationship. She got engaged. We did engagement photographs. We're planning the wedding. And some things happened in their lives. They both had very big family things happen. And they realized if we plow through and do this wedding on top of all that, it's too much. And they literally took their wedding date and pushed it back a year. Ladies and gentlemen, that's not easy to do. That takes some real heart, soul, and brain power to stop. And I think if we take a big takeaway, just listening to us talk about this, again, in that linear form, we don't really do that very often. Stop. If something doesn't feel right, if your knees are knocking, it's not always fright. It's the fact that maybe it shouldn't be happening. Take a pause. If it was meant to be, taking it off pause will not be that difficult.
Absolutely. You can always... Again, if it's the right person, that person should understand, or at least respect and wanted to say, hey, I wanted this to be the right reason we're both doing this, and then decide what to do about it. And if it's meant to be, and if it's the right relationship, then it will work out. But if that ruins it because you're having doubts, then obviously that's going to be an answer as well, right? So, Doug, any last comments about this topic before I want Jack and Monica to tell everyone about their business?
Yeah, just keep in mind, if that red flag becomes a checkered flag, it's the finish line. Stop.
Okay.
Wow. I'm translating that and trying to process that in my own head.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
No, it just popped into my head. It was a feeble shot at humor, and it obviously did not work. There's 4 of us here, and 3 of us thought that wasn't funny, so continue on.
You're not listening to my advice when I tell you that only 50% have been landing recently.
Wait a minute. Was I more than 50% at some point? Maybe a red flag would be that when your partner does not see your sense of humor any longer. Is that true?
Are you breaking up with me? Is that what that means right now?
No. We haven't finished the engagement session yet.
We have 2 more tastings here in Santa Barbara. Then we'll discuss that.
No, of course we're just joking. So, Jack and Monica, tell us about your business. Where are you located? What is your website? What are you shooting these days? How can people get in touch with you?
We are wedding photographers extraordinaire. We are event photographers across the board. The photographic arm of the Washington Talent Agency in our nation's capital. You can find us at WashingtonTalent.com. You can find more about me personally, Monica and I together at JackHartzman.com, HARTZMAN. We travel the world. We travel the country. If it's worthy of photographing, we're there to make lifelong memories.
Monica, would you like to add anything else about your business or your clients or your work?
Ditto. We love our clients. We love our work. We do. We really do. And we've been blessed to be able to do it for 30 years, as we said. And it just gets, every day gets better and different. And, being here with JJ and Doug, it's just another experience. And we capture moments in time. It sounds very cliche, but it's, living life. Don't let it live you. So that's what we do.
Just to give an additional plug, I've been working with Jack and Monica for 15 years, and they did many of my special events in my life. Thank you, Jack and Monica, very much. It would be so amazing to have them travel anywhere to do weddings. Although they're based in D.C., like they said, they travel anywhere, and that is an emphasis on they will go anywhere there is a wedding, and I know that you would love them just as good friends and as a couple that cares about the couples that they are seeing get married and have their ceremonies in the most special day. For them, it is amazing, and they can turn magic out of those moments. So please, if you are thinking about getting married at any point and you want a wedding photographer, event photographer of any kind, Jack and Monica are amazing.
And in the case that you are going to take a pause, but you're not giving up on your relationship and your wedding isn't this year, maybe come to the couples retreat. Let's work it out together at the couples retreat. JJFlizanes.com/couples retreat. You know the drill. We've talked about it before, but seriously, it's worth an evaluation if it's something that you're not sure of, at least getting clarity and learning a little bit more about who you are and your core wounds and your love languages and your astrology and how to communicate on a different level would be beneficial for not only the relationship you might be in, but any relationship in the future.
Did you say there was going to be a portrait session for the couples at the retreat this year?
Oh, look at that.
Wait a minute. Is it a love photo session for coming to the conference this year?
We haven't talked about that, but maybe over our dinner tonight, maybe we can discuss that deal. So, all right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Thanks, Jack and Monica.
Hey, thanks for having us.